Are you committed to crime, lack discipline, yet love order and would like a structured lifestyle? Well, become a first-time felon. Get the respect of the unemployed and uninformed now. Upon receiving your felony, we'll wish you good luck towards gainful employment with an F on your record. Check it out and welcome. You're a first-time felon. Check it out. What's it about? First Time Felon is about an amateur drug dealer discovering his humanity. Greg Yance is a first-time offender, and in his journey of redemption, he must conquer the internal self-hate some of us suffer from. Check it out. Let's check out the First-Time Felon characters. Omar Epps is Greg Yance, a vice lord from the south side of Chicago. Greg grew up in the towers of Cabrini Greens. Greg's a hustler like his father was, and he's on the road to perish in the street like his father did. Greg is 23 right now. Tyrone, played by Tretch from Naughty by Nature, is a gangster disciple. He's run the gambit of being shot and stabbed, and he's a survivor of these streets. And somehow, he's managed to avoid getting a felony up until this point. Calhoun is a mean boot camp guard. He feels he has to be harder on the inmates than the streets are to motivate them to change. He's often provoking inmates to force them into having control. Calhoun himself wouldn't like to admit it, but he's the antagonist for the film. Captain McBride is a fair boot camp guard. She believes guards should give inmates chances and space to change without demoralizing them, the way Calhoun does. The homie Clifton Powell makes an appearance here as King. King is the plug for Greg and his homie Pookie. Pookie is the example of one of the homies that be about that life, but ain't built for it. Did I mention Greg's nickname is Boss Hog? That's gonna come up as an important point later in the film, but check it out. What I see? The story starts at the end, but it's set in Chicago around 95 or 96. Greg and his homie Pookie are low-level hustlers serving drugs. When they're arrested, once in custody, they're put in a bullpen. A bullpen is a holding cell mixed with different levels of criminals. I'm talking about rivals and allies. I'm talking all together mixed in small quarters. And this is not unusual. Matter of fact, it's all par for the course for the pair of real niggas who up until this point are not really taking what's going on too seriously. But they finna find out that ignorance of the law don't excuse you from it. First Time Felon shows rookie criminals the cost of ignorance. Little did Greg and Pookie know, they was just as nonchalant as the public defenders and correctional officers. Matter of fact, they was just as nonchalant as everybody who works within the legal system. What you should notice that's accurate is how little correctional officers care about, or should I say not care about, drugs you may have or about keeping you safe. However, nonetheless, because Greg's a real nigga, Pookie's ops are Greg's ops too. So in the bullpen, when Pookie gets into it, Greg now has an enemy, played by Tretch, who in my opinion, did a pretty decent job as a 7'4" gangster, if I may say so myself. And since we're throwing it out there, GD stands for growth and development, no longer gangster disciples. But Tretch plays Tyrone, and as they await trial, Tyrone pulls rank on deck, hoping to make Greg pay for his friend's disrespect. And at first, I thought Greg, who was a vice lord, tried to perpetrate or false flag as a gangster upon entering their domain. But it ended up being a mix-up because GDs address members of their organization as brothers of the struggle, or boss for short. So when Greg enters where the GDs are at talking about what up boss, I'm boss, he looked like he false flagging. Yet, as a warning, he's quickly shown the consequences of cowardly claiming something that you're not, just for safety, and is given a pass, but only barely. At trial, Greg is charged with distribution, even though he barely had over 5 grams, but that's a different conversation. This qualified him for the mandatory minimum of a 5-year sentence, with a felonious status, which was not the expected slap on the wrist for the usual first-time non-violent offender. And it was at this point, when things started to get real, you can see it on the judge's face that it's not what he wants to do, but because of mandatory minimums, he has no choice. However, since he is a first-time offender, Greg is given the option of boot camp as an alternative to prison. But you still keep the felony on your record. But if you're wondering what's a mandatory minimum sentence is a predefined term for a sentence of crime. a predefined term for a certain crime for the purpose of heinous and violent offenses. They was established in the 70s, but made effective in the mid-80s for President Reagan's war on drugs. And again, for Clinton's 92 crime bill. Now, all 50 states have mandatory minimum written into their laws. So, like it or loathe it, mandatory minimums remove the compassion and the empathy of our judges, which is something that we want them to have, especially when they're dealing with people that look like us. What's ironic is, in theory, mandatory minimums were enacted for equality. That's crazy. Check it out. Alright, I got some lessons for you first-time felons and those interested in being. Lesson. If you're doing illegal things, have a paid lawyer on retainer. Don't put your life or your lifetime in the hands of a public defender.
See, the key to this shit is having a good lawyer. And see what I do, I give them a little something each month, even if I'm not arrested. What happened to all that motherfucking money y'all made? How many times I done told y'all got to save your money? Now this shit here is the consequences of the motherfucking game. Now you got to deal with it.
Lesson. Faking it to make it works in a lot of situations, but never in them streets. That's why as a code of conduct, you should be as 100 as you can.
And what you said about doing shit you don't want to do up in here to survive, I'm going to have to do them, boss.
Lesson. It's not someone else's job or responsibility.
It's not our job to straighten you out. It is your job. It is your responsibility.
That's up to you. Lesson. Don't let setbacks derail you or define you.
You go and get what's yours. You're gonna tell them the truth. Step up, baby, and tell them who you are.
Here's a bonus lesson. Them streets don't love you, man. Don't confuse the streets with the hood. The hood is your community. Them streets is something different. Check it out. When you see it, it's hard to deny the effectiveness of boot camp and how the film challenges the premise of the dueling dichotomy of consciousness and how it highlights the paradox of change. The whole purpose of boot camp is to ease prison overcrowding, with the theory being that a dose of military discipline might help some young men find the strength to turn their lives around. But besides discipline, boot camp offers so much more, such as the opportunity to understand that the world is so much bigger than your local block, or how it's enrichment in helping others, and that the petty rifts that we may have amongst ourselves as men or as members of street organizations tend to fade away. Honestly, the best aspect, besides being an alternative to prison, is that it supplements fatherly dedication by providing discipline and determination with validation, which is the foundation of the maturation into manhood. I don't think it's a coincidence most of the males eligible for boot camp come from single mother households, unable to fully render a man child, or as we call it, a baby boy. So in a lot of ways, boot camp is exactly what many youths could use. Misguided or fatherless youth in general often need something bigger than themselves anyway to commit to. I mean, it's the precise reason why some of us choose street fraternities and organizations in the first place. This is what justifies the usefulness of boot camp on young adults. Charles Dutton, who most of us remember as the iconic character of Rock, directed this movie using Delroy Lindo as Calhoun to explore the internal hate we have for ourselves with the dichotomy of blacks and niggas, framing the latter as less disciplined and less refined. I mean, we can go ahead and play like it's a difference between blacks and niggas, but that would just be an example of the antiquated, no matter how updated, argument of Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, with Du Bois most likely siding with blacks. At the end of the day, people are people. No one should have to live the stereotypical life set for them. Separating folks according to gang affiliation is no different than separating them by race to me, which is evidence if you look at prison politics. That's why playing the whole game of I'm black, I'm not African, or I'm a real nigga is no different than gangbanging to me. It's real simple. If you eliminate all that and just leave people as human beings, some of us have discipline, morals, and self-control, and some of us simply need to work on it. But placing yourself on a melanated tier list of African, black, or nigga based on your location in the diaspora would be sad, pathetic, and or tragic.
White people look at me. It kills me that they see you because they move.
Just saying. Through Calhoun, we witness one of the ways self-hate looks in our community. When blacks accept the idea that they're better than niggas, that's just self-hate, because you still believe in what the dominant society says about your own kind. Why does it upset you that the worst that they can think of us could be something like you. Why even allow them that power?
You know why? Cause you're happy just to be a motherfucking nigga.
As much as he fought against it, Calhoun revealed himself to be what he feared becoming, which may be what W.E. Du Bois emphasized as the legacy of racism and its deleterious effects on the lives of black people. The catalyst of the story presents the challenge of the paradox of change, being that change occurs when one becomes what he is, not when he tries to become what he's not. The inmates at the boot camp, they aren't convicts. They wasn't hardened criminals. They wasn't even built for the life that they tried to pursue. And it was the storm that allowed them to reveal their true character, becoming who they actually are. Not only did that part actually happen, inmates aiding and assisting ain't nothing new. The use of inmates to protect public interest has been done many times before. Most recently in California with their wildfires. And they're always greeted with suspicion, but later thanked with hospitality and almost rarely publicly acknowledged. Nonetheless, this event gave the inmates of the boot camp the chance to prove that instilling discipline works on young, out-of-control adults. However, Calhoun's self-hating ass didn't see it that way. Calhoun's self-hate is counterproductive to himself and to the program, which is to encourage and offer opportunities to change. I believe Captain McBride understood this and the double standard placed on many of the inmates in the program, mentioning that
10 years ago, these kids picked up for the first time would have just been given probation. Just the same way that first-time rich white kids still are.
by Calhoun's logic, he must think that only niggas are arrested, because it's like he doesn't identify any black people in the boot camp program, which can't be accurate. That ain't nothing but self-hate. No black man would hate on another nigga, unless you're suffering with self-hate.
These inmates don't come from those neighborhoods, Captain. And the last thing they need is somebody telling them that their race is an excuse.
Sergeant.
This is why Calhoun is warned, being reprimanded by Captain McBride on how his hardness and tough attitude is threatening the inmates' morale and their goal.
This program believes that young men can change. Are you with the program, officer?
Yes, I am, ma'am.
All right.
As a self-loving black man, why would you even push another black man to the edge unless you was a hater yourself? If all this was about discipline, where was Calhoun's discipline? Especially after he received the warning. It takes a lot to do that. So the way Calhoun was coming down on Tyrone, that wasn't nothing but self-hate. But at the end of the program, as a microcosm of America eating its own, as the program ends for some, it begins anew for others. And once Greg gets out, he's placed on home confinement, house arrest, as a way to monitor his movements and to limit his proximity to trouble. And it's here we identify an issue. Now that Greg is productively motivated, the system is now stunting his progress with another catch-22. They want him to be a contributing member of society, but won't let him fully acclimate to do so, placing limits on his progress. As the same man with a new mindset, Greg is now battling the paradox of change. People think he now feels he's better than them, which is false.
I'm the same, even if you ain't.
I'm the same too. Just ain't hustling, that's all.
But the challenge and the paradox of change is that the more you change your character being more comfortable who you truly are, the more people just believe it's just temporary, which causes many to revert back to who they were originally pretending to be because lack of support and because of the pressure to be what society deems. This may be why the recidivism rate is so high. Even when you repay your debt to society, you still walk around with a label, and that's messed up, which is why those that's able should start businesses so we can take care and hire our own. Check it out. Greg Yance ultimately shared his story to reach executives, business owners, and society at large to let them know that just because someone has a felony doesn't mean they're worthless, without morals, or trash, and that maybe you should ask them what they can offer to explore their humanity. The post-prison life for a felon exposes the hypocrisy of the system, while at the same time, young men like Greg show how difficult it is for women to raise and discipline males alone, despite encouragement and prayers. The truth is, it shouldn't take boot camp for young men to experience life outside the hood or their communities. If they can see something different sooner, maybe they could act differently or be something different than what it takes to survive in them streets. Because to Greg's point about being something you're not, you shouldn't have to be forced to be someone you're not in order to survive. Pookie wasn't built for that life. We see what happened to him. Don't be like Pookie. Faking it till you make it only goes so far. By the way, For the record, according to Mike Tyson, discipline is doing what you don't like as if you loved it. Keep in mind, if you have to transform, it should feel innate, such as going from a boy to a man. If we're being fair or 100 with ourselves, real growth is maturity, not the change of your image. As always, I'm Fox. This is Check It Out. Let me know any lessons I missed in the comments. Check It Out Hood Reviews is an official black-owned business. Hitting that like, sharing, and subscribing is the least expensive way you can show your support. So as usual, like, share, and subscribe so the big homie can survive. Y'all be cool, be safe, and remember, choose wisely, fam. Here go them extras. Extra. The real Greg Yance says the character of Pookie was real, but he never snitched on nobody. For the script, the director took dramatic liberties. Some of y'all might be familiar with Calhoun's voice. Ja Rule used his monologue for Vinny Vinci. It's the niggas thing.
Hard-working, law-abiding black people. Niggas like you make me sick.
Pepper from Salt and Pepper makes an appearance in here, man. Throughout the movie, I ain't gonna lie, Treacherous Tyrone damn near convinced me he stuttered for real. Another scene that was added for creative liberty was the ending having Greg at the hotel damn near offing himself. That never really happened. The director just wanted to add that for relatability and dramatic effect for the fair-skinned folks of the audience. Questions. Do you subscribe to the belief that it's a war amongst black folks and niggas? I'm just asking. If so, which are you? And do you need the other? Do black folks need niggas? And does niggas need black folks? Like, if you violate your community in a certain way, are you just considered a nigga? Do you know anybody that went to boot camp? Hey, what about Job Corps? How many of y'all remember Job Corps? They still got that cop? That's still out there? Did it do anybody that you know any good? Did it do you any good? To my hood figures out there with businesses, in the spirit of Claude Anderson, reach out if you would like that product sponsored here. Help me help us practice hood economics. And before I go, these reviews are made possible with contribution from OGs and hood figures like you. Thank you. It's appreciated in a real way. If you like this channel and would like to see it grow, somewhere in the bottom, YouTube got a way you can donate. Also, that Patreon and Cash App is in the description below. So look out for me, man, as I look out for you. I'm out your ear, man. 7414 for life, man. You know I do it with love. Anyway, I'm out your ear, man. Check it out.